Hey everybody, this is Carl back again for another movie spoiler review for the Halloween season, and today I'll be covering Blade 2. This time directed by Guillermo del Toro. The first movie, which I just reviewed, which should be up on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkingofcarl, was directed by David S. Goyer. And personally, I think Del Toro kind of really stepped it up a notch, and I kind of wish he would have just been the only one to do like the Blade films, because when you're dealing with something in a horror genre, you need somebody who's like, this is their repertoire. This is, it's like second nature to them. And I think, Del Toro and Burton, Sam Raimi is like, the three off the top of my head. It's like, of course there was Wes Craven, but like three alive directors that really like know how to do the whole gothic horror fantasy type of feel and just make it work. The got Wesley Snipes reprising his role as Blade, as well as Chris Christopherson as Whistler. But we got some new people here. Ron Perlman, love that guy, as Reinhardt. Lenore Verla as Nisa. Norman Reedus as Scud. This is the first time I actually seen Norman Reedus in anything, way before Walking Dead ever became a thing. Thomas Kretschmann as Eli Damaskinos. Luke Goss as Jared Nomak, which as a kid I thought that was, because of the makeup, I thought for a second that was like, Tom Cruise or something. Matt Schultz as Chupa. Danny John Jules as Assad. Donnie Yen as Snowman. Didn't even realize it's a young Donnie Yen. Didn't even realize that was him for such a long time. Carol Roden as Carol Coonan. Eli's lawyer. So this picks up after the events of the first Blade movie, where after when supposedly Whistler died in the partway through Blade, the first Blade film, turns out somehow he still turned, and the vampires, some vampires picked him up and been holding him hostage for a couple of years, torturing him, then killing him in these blood vats and stuff like that. And it's like, it seems very forced way to get like this actor to come back again. Sure, like I like him as Whistler, he was pretty much a good choice, but it's just like, I don't know, it just feels like it makes no sense, because he seems like he did not turn yet. Even if he did, the gunshot supposedly that he did on himself should have still offed him, but he somehow still survived. And for some reason some vampires come picked him up, but no point in general. That's how I point that out, because it makes no sense why they need to pick him up and hold him hostage for a couple of years and torture him for what information. It's never fully explained. But so that's why at the end of the last film, Blade went to Moscow, because that's where he was on a search for Whistler. He eventually found him thanks to this like vampire he held, hostage. But then like let him go once he got to the point where he did, because he did technically promise, like if you leave me to, like I consider you like a loose end, but loose end tends to get tightened up eventually. But found Whistler, took him back to the hideout to heal him. Technically, after when the sun rises, just to see if he is a vampire or not. It turns out he's not. So the cure, like he managed to get to him in time before like it gotten worse. And crotchety old man Whistler is mad because Scud is the new Q to Blade's James Bond, and he doesn't like how this young dude's doing things. He like I started this Operation Ass Wipe, and it's, he's not wrong, but it's like he came off like F Scud. But then through this commotion, the hideout gets infiltrated by these ninja vampires, apparently coming in very silently, but then drop down right in front of Whistler like some idiots. The whole point of trying to get to Blade, you could just, because that's ultimately they just want to talk with Blade, but it's like, why would you come in like you're a threat? Ninjas don't just, if you you don't just come in like ninjas, infiltrate silently just to talk. You knock on a goddamn door, and ask, can we just have like a chat kind of thing. But there's like a brief cool fight sequence between these two, Nyssa and Nyssa and Assad, but partially the CGI is horrendous. Like even for back then, it was just like, what is this garbage, man? It's like, even for like, it came out in like 2002. Yeah, it came out in 2002. So it's like, it make no sense for it, even for that, for 2002 standpoints, for this CGI to look this terrible. But they call a ceasefire and said like, hey, our boss want to meet you, there's a problem, we need your help. So they all go to Eli's headquarters, and they explain to Blade that there's this new vampire out there called Nomak, who is a vampire, but somehow his vampirism evolved into some more of like a pandemic level of a strain, where not only he feeds on humans, he feeds on vampires, and he ends up turning anybody he feeds on into as they dub, reapers like him. So on the way back to the headquarters, they ask like, okay, like, what'd you think? And they just blatantly just say like, yeah, they're gonna fuck us the first chance they get. This is the matter of fact way he delivered that. It was so freaking funny, and it's so true. It was like, why would you buy what a vampire would say? Because they will view a human person as food. And it's like trying to negotiate, a plate of chicken of their rights as, in the food chain, whatever. So Blade rationalized like, they're gonna take us deeper than we ever been before. So know your enemy. So we'll deal with this vampire situation, and if they ever try anything, like I'll be ready. So he meets the Blood Pack, Reinhardt and the others, and they were specifically supposed to be trained to take him out. Obviously, not very effective because Reinhardt comes at him with, you know, confusing ass racial slurs like "Do you blush?" And it's always been like a topic of discussion of, like, you know, back in the day, like, what the hell does that mean? Because obviously it's racist as hell. Even the fact that Blade responds back to him, calling him Adolf. So it's like, obviously it's gotta be some kind of thing. But I kind of wish that, you know, these, just like the whole Ice Skate uphill line, you gotta make these catchphrases make sense. I mean, although, you know, sometimes when Blade delivers certain lines, it's just cool. It doesn't matter if it makes sense. So Blade, in like an awesome display of just like a flex, he you know, takes like, oh, you guys been training to like to kill me. Well, I'm right here. It's like, you know, you get the first shot. And so he shows Reinhardt like a silver stake. And it's like, go ahead, like, just go punch it to my heart right here now. And so he kept smacking him like, come on. It's like, you don't need permission. Come on, like, I'm right here. And then just showing, like, you know, the alpha in this situation. And Reinhardt tries to like make a move, and then with some cool judo moves, he takes Blade takes like a explosive device and plunges in the back of, you know, Reinhardt's dome, and it's like, this is set to go off if anybody tempers with it. So, you know, you taking orders from me, so don't F with me. So now that was all settled, Nyssa takes Blade to the House of Pain, where a large amount of vampires will congregate, which Blade theorized that's where Nomak will most likely strike. And so Whistler and Scud present some weaponry to Blade and the Blood Pack in order to deal with these Reapers, because they figure like they're just vampires still, so this should be like a walk in the park. Because, you know, they not just dealing with Nomak, there's probably like a nest, because as Assad points out, they're like crack addicts, you know, and they feed, you know, a lot more than your typical vampire would need to. And it's like in a few days there's like a you know, several of them. By the end of the week, you know, like twice as much, and then by the month there'll be more, and then like you do the math from there. So they gotta take out like these nests of these things in a quick succession. So as they're about to go to the building, they, you know, the Blood Pack telling like, hey, old man gotta stay behind for obvious reasons, because like, kind of right, because you can't have a human person walk in a whole den full of vampires and not get stopped. And they won't have the time or the patience trying to get all these vampires off of him. So he's hanging back and he's getting all pissy about it, which he should a little bit more understand the fact that it's not like a good look right now. And there's this whole tension right now with like, can we trust Whistler, given the fact that he's been under the watchful eye of, you know, vampires for 2 years, being tortured and stuff like that. It's, you know, they question his loyalty, and it's like, watching this as many times I've had, there was no bearing of fruit of his loyalty, and as they playing like, you know, can Blade trust Whistler, and it's like, you know, they ain't had no discussion. There's no, you know, proof, you know, showing of like, you know, I'm always gonna be loyal to you, Blade, kind of thing. It's none of that. They just kind of like drop that whole notion altogether. I don't know why they kind of placate that whole can't trust him situation. So he's hanging on the roof, you know, as like a, you know, as a sniper, keeping an eye on things, and Scud's in the battle van as their getaway driver. And so they all walk in, and uh they start like, you know, breaking up apart to, you know, scope out the area. Linehammer gets bit, but takes out a Reaper. But the thing doesn't die. And Snowman, you know, attacks a Reaper, but as he nailed this thing to like a wall with his sword, it literally just, you know, almost like a zombie. Is like doesn't care about self-preservation. It just like, you know, allows it to slice through him as he's like climbing up the walls to make his escape. And by the way, I want to point out the fact that, you know, Del Toro knows how to make monsters, because the design of the Reapers and their like malleable jaws and the tongue and everything like that, it's like the prosthetics is freaking amazing, and people, not many people appreciate some good prosthetics. And from what I heard, like he didn't ever care for the CGI. I think he was probably rushed. I could be wrong on that, but you know, I always praise prosthetic, you know, prosthetics over or practical effects over CGI almost every other day of the week. The CGI got to be used when it's absolutely necessary. Like having like somebody like Thanos, that is a necessary amount of CGI that definitely need to make sure the budget goes directly to that. Something like a fight between Nisa and Blade in his headquarters didn't need the CGI, but I guess you gotta show like some acrobatic moves, but could easily do wire work. That's perfectly fine. But anyway, so they come to realize none of the traditional means of taking down these particular vampires is working, except for one thing: the UV sunlights. Priest gets, you know, bit and starting to turn, and so they have to like use sunlight to, you know, put him out of his misery. Nisa and Blade gets, you know, bumps into Nomak, and Nomak, you know, and Blade end up fighting. Blade takes a shot at his head with his gun, and he does this triple backflip in this hallway. And it's like, here's another thing: the amount of flips that's unnecessary here is something I, you know, always took notice of. Is like, why does that? Because like you shooting somebody in the head in these films, you just head go back and, you know, fall back. You don't do this cartoony flip. Like he's not getting hit with a cannonball here. It's just like a bullet still. But after the whole fight between Nomak and Blade, which is still cool, the sunlight, you know, comes through, and Nomak runs away, and they end up finding, thanks to Whistler, he ends up finding a Reaper getting caught in their little escape hatch where they came up from. So they run, Nisa runs an experiment on it, realizing even if the thing is technically dead, the body is still trying to feed on blood, and the mouth carries like neurotoxin to paralyze their prey, make it easier for them to, like, you know, snack on. And so Blade just like, yo, we're gonna be selling up pretty soon, but even though it's sunlight out, it's like, well, it's no better time to deal with these things because sunlight's the only weapon. So Scott and Whistle's gonna make these kind of UV bombs and other stuff to utilize sunlight in order to be able to take down these things in a quick succession before the nest grows any bigger. And Blade just bluntly tells him, like, look, let's be real. I don't expect any of you guys to make it back alive, so it is what it is. And Nisa has to go talk to him after watching him try to inject his serum into himself because he has to feed. She had this whole spiel about like the way you talk to us. It's like, you know, why you hate us so? And Blaze just points out like it's just fate, or the fact that yeah, you're vampires and you feed on human people. So yeah, I think many people would have a problem with that. So you trying to justify like, oh, I made peace with what I am a long time ago. That's like, lady, shut up. You're a vampire. Sure, there's layers to everybody, including vampires, but don't sugarcoat the fact that a lot of people, pretty sure even you, have fed on people in order to sustain your own bodily functions. And it's like you could not chose like animals to feed off of just to you know, do the same job. So it's like it just made no sense for you to, you know, try to justify like, but of course, you know, Blade in this film, unlike the last film, feels for this particular woman, even to the point where he's making sure she learns about the bomb. You got 10 seconds, make sure you're out of the range, making sure she, you know, stays safe in certain, you know, areas. It's like, you know, at the very least, I give this credit where she offers, well, I think it would be a better line of dialogue personally, where it's like there's more to us than what you just assume about us or what you deal with, because not every vampire is a monster in a by a metaphorical sense or literal, well, metaphorical sense. Um and she's like proof of that, like I'm more than just what I am. And this, you know, this, I kind of wish this part did kind of carry over into the next film. Although then again, there was no guarantee there was supposed to be a third film at all. But I think it's kind of like forced it, you know, studios kind of forced it, I guess. That's probably why it didn't turn out so well. Partly why it didn't turn out so well, because like, you know, you gotta have like a third film because the franchise was, you know, making bank so far. But I kind of wish to kind of carry over where Blade has some more nuance to, you know, certain vampires. Like if they haven't fed on any humans yet, they might be able to find like another way with them rather than just outright kill them. Just under the fact that, oh, you're a vampire, you automatically gotta die. Is, you know, kind of wish they had that kind of thing involved with Blade to consider. So they go under the sewers to take out this nest. Reinhardt, not Reinhardt, Lighthammer change. He attacks Snowman. His girlfriend sees her. She sacrifices herself in the sunlight to take out her lover, which, you know, something that she, you know, obviously felt horrible about, but had to be done. And because they lost Priest, they blame Whistler for leaving his post. So Chupa starts beating on him, but Whistler was smart enough to spray on like some pheromones they got from the Reaper's body in order to draw them out. So they attack Chupa while Whistler makes his escape, but it's stopped by Nomak, who delivers a secret to Whistler to deliver to Blade. Well, you know, Assad is attacked by a bunch of Reapers, and Blade activates the bomb, takes out the entire nest, but Nomak. But Nisa is scarred a little bit from the light blast. He has her feet off of him so she can like heal a bit. But then right then and there, Reinhardt took the opportunity to betray them. And then the lawyer and all the other grunts from like Eli's camp comes pick up Blade, Whistler, and Scud. And upon learning that, you know, from, you know, as Whistler points out, that Nomad gave him this ring that Eli gave to him. Turns out Nomak is Eli's son, brother to Nyssa, and turns out this Reaper strain isn't a biological evolution thing. It was scientifically created to try to artificially make a Daywalker, which they didn't have all the necessary components to make a Daywalker like Blade. But Nomak was the first one off the assembly line, and he wasn't technically perfect in Eli's mind, so he escaped before he could be destroyed. That's why Nomak has been on this vendetta against vampires in general, but working his way to destroy his father. And Scud is revealed to be a familiar to Eli's organization. He's been the man on the inside for them for a long time. That's probably why they've been, making this blood pact and getting information from Scud to give them enough necessary knowledge in order to make effective soldiers in order to counteract anything that Blade might throw at them, which obviously probably did not work because Reinhardt didn't put up much of a fight. But I argue Nyssa and Assad is probably was like very effective. Probably almost like a stalemate in a way. So I guess it kind of sort of was effective. But Scud turns out to be like a betrayer, and the supposed explosive bomb that he planted behind Reinhardt's head turns out to be a dud, just to show that Scud's like, oh hey, I temper with it because I just want to make sure you felt like you were in control. Like, I'd rather be pet than cattle, because I ain't trying to go down like that. Given the fact that Blade did rescue him from some female vampires that he shows his body, they was carving him up and stuff like that, and Blade rescued him, but Blade turns out to say like, hey, I was onto you from the moment that they turned you. They probably got to him long after Blade saved him from those vampiresses long ago. So he tells like the bomb is not a dud. He presses the device again, and Daryl Dixon gets blown up right there and there. So they haul Blade away in order to drain him of his blood, because his blood's the key almost all the time. Whistler breaks out of his handcuffs, tunnels through like air ducts, finds Blade, saves him, and he takes him to this big blood vat that Eli uses to bathe in. Recharges his body. He takes on Reinhardt and a couple of Eli's goons, and all the while this going on, Eli and Nyssa has been like running along with their personal guards away from Nomak, who's been like barreling inside this place, taking out a bunch of these guards with little effort. And Nyssa hadn't had it with the lies of her father and using them and taking and causing the death of her men, including Assad that she cared about, trapped themselves with Nomak. Nomak kills Eli, bites Nyssa, who just understands and just surrenders to it. But Blade shows up, and a decent fight happens between Blade and Nomak, but the CGI, man, is just like, man, it's terrible. But Blade managed to take a broken piece of his sword, and even though like the anatomy of these Reapers, like there's a hardened bone structure around the heart to make it tough for anything to penetrate the heart to actually stake this vampire, Blade had to really get in there and manage to pierce it. But Nomak realizing, yeah, I'm gonna die, but I'm not gonna have like a slow death. So he further pushes it into himself and resigns himself to die, given the fact that like I achieved my goal. I took out my father. I'm satisfied. So Blade, cradling Nyssa, she asked to be carried to see outside so she can see the sunset for the first time, because since she was born a vampire, she never actually got a chance to actually see a sunrise before. So she dies looking upon her first sunrise because she refused to die as a Reaper. She wanted to die as a vampire. So everything ends with Whistler and Blade taking down Eli's organization and stopping the Reaper pandemic. Then the movie ends in a hilarious way where the little scum that in the beginning of the film that Blade used as a scapegoat in order to find Whistler's little where they kept Whistler, he's going to this, he's in London, he's going to this kind of like, you know, peep show thing, and as the curtains pull back and you see Blade on the other side. And to this day, me and my cousins and my brother, we always laughed at this part because it was so freaking funny. Where Blade is like, you didn't really think I forgot about you, did? And he just kills the guy. And it's like, he's been this whole movie, and it's like he didn't really need to, you know, it's like this dude wasn't really a threat, but he's just like, no loose ends. You know, I let you live long enough than I, you know, cared to do so. But it's like, oh man, that whole entire thing was so freaking funny. I love that part. But that was Blade 2. So much fun. The only problem was the whole, you know, the biggest problem was the CGI. But man, you know, the look of it, the lines, the story, everything was, all the other stuff was like, you know, so much fun. Great direction. And kind of wish Del Toro was the one to do Blade 3. If there was going to be a Blade 3, they should have kept him or bring back David S. Goyer. Either one of these two, because you know the first two Blade films are still top notch. But later on this weekend, I will be covering Blade Trinity, which I was contemplating whether or not to do it earlier this year when I was making my Halloween review list. But I figure, since I'm covering the first two Blade films and a TV show and a comic, I might as well do Blade Trinity too, just to make a decent complete thing. So I got Marvel Anime, Blade, and Blade Trinity that I'll be doing this weekend. But let me know in the comments below what you think of Blade 2. Like and subscribe, share this with your friends, and I'll see you all soon. Take care.